Hello guys! In the following video we're going to create simple PHP create, read, update and delete application with a file system. The data basically is saved and read from the JSON file, and this is what we're going to do right now. This is a table where we will be reading JSON data and displaying the table. When you hit the view button, you see basically all details about the user. Here we have update and delete buttons. When you hit the update button, you go to the update form. When you hit the delete button, the user is deleted, of course. So we have possibility to create new user and the empty form is displayed. We have form validation, so if you try to submit the invalid form, you have an errors. When you fill up the form and hit the submit button, the user is saved at the end of the table. Okay, that's basically all. There's nothing complicated. I'm looking forward and so excited. Let's start. This is how my project looks like right now. I have just single file users JSON and there are some predefined data, some dummy data. So we're going to read this data and display it in the table. I'm going to create index.php file and paste some boilerplate HTML right here. Now here I want to read my JSON file and convert it into PHP array, then iterate over the array and print table, output table. Okay, so I want to read my JSON and return the PHP array from this. So I'm going to create a users PHP file, which will do basically all the reading and writing into the JSON file. Let me call it users JSON. So here basically I will have a couple of functions. Get users, get user by ID. I will need these for update and for delete, which will accept an ID argument and return a user object to user array from the JSON. Create user, which will accept the data as the argument and return created user. Update user, which will also accept data, but it also will accept ID, the ID of the user which will be updated. Delete user, which will accept just ID. Okay, so I think that's enough. Now let's read the JSON file and return users array. I'm going to read JSON file with method file get contents, passing the path to the user's JSON. Okay, this will give me a JSON string which is written in the JSON file. So I'm gonna JSON decode this string, which will finally give me the array of objects users. So I'm going to give the second argument to the JSON decode, which means that I want to return an associative array. Okay, so when I dump the user's information, and let me call this getUsers method from the index.php, require users PHP, and I'm going to call get users method, this function. I'm going to exit right here to stop the code, and let's see what is the output. Here are my users. Now it says that I have an array of array elements, but if I remove this source parameter true, I have an array of std class objects. I prefer to work with arrays, so I'm gonna put the source true, and we can just return this, which is actually what we want, get users. Now let's go to the index.php and save these users in a variable. Okay, here in the body parameter we want to iterate over our users and just row them. So we're going to create table. I'm using Bootstrap. I have included Bootstrap from the CDN, so I will be using Bootstrap classes, CSS classes. Nothing complicated. So just I'm going to give a table class to the table element, which will make the table much more nicer. T-head, and we're going to have a couple of TH elements. We're going to display from the user JSON name, username, email, phone, and website. I'm not going to display ID in the table. Okay, so we're going to create name, username, email, phone, and website. And let's create now T-body HTML element and iterate over our users. PHP for each users is user, PHP and for each. And here we're going to create all our TD elements. First, we are going to output echo user name. We are going to output username, email, phone, and website also. Username, email, phone, and website. Let's see the output. This is the result so far. We have read the JSON and output it in the table. Now let's add actions column to have the actions button to view or to update or to delete the particular user. So I'm going to create a new column in the table, actions, and I'm going to create a new TD also right here and put here a couple of buttons. Okay, I'm going to create anchor elements with Bootstrap classes, btn, btn outline, info, and this will be view. We're going to have also update and delete buttons. For delete, I'm going to use danger style, which will make the button red, and for update, I'm going to use secondary style. Let's see how it looks like. Here are our buttons. I think they are really nice. Let me make a little bit smaller using btn sn class. Okay, that's much better. Now let's put the proper href attributes. So we're going to use new files for view, update, and delete. So I'm going to put here view PHP. I'm going to put here delete PHP. We are going to put here update PHP, and here we're going to put delete PHP. But we need to give the ID of the user which we want to view or update or delete. So I'm going to give a query parameter ID equals, then I'm going to pass here my current user ID, the loop, the cycle user ID. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and paste it for all of them. So now when I click or view or update, I have a not found because my view PHP doesn't exist. Now let's go and create this user view PHP. Okay, here we see already, we don't see this object not found error, but our page is empty because we don't do basically anything in our view PHP. What we are going to do here is that we're going to take this ID parameter from the URL and select a user from this users PHP, basically call the getUserById method from this view PHP and just draw the user information. Okay, so I'm gonna get this ID parameter, which will be basically in the super global get variable. So user ID is get ID. Oops. Okay, now we're gonna select user. User is get user by ID and pass this ID. But here we need to also include this user's PHP file to be able to call this get user by ID method. Otherwise, when we try to just get user by ID, we have an error that call to undefined function get user by ID. So for this, we need to require our user's users PHP file. Okay, now we don't have this error anymore, but we have an error in view PHP line 6, undefined variable ID. That's right, we don't have ID, we have user ID. Okay, now we will not have any error, but still we have an empty page because we haven't implemented anything yet. Now let's go to the getUserById method and implement this method so that we can return a user. Okay, so I'm gonna call here users is getUsers, so which will give me all users. I'm gonna iterate over my users as user and check the following. If the user ID is the same as the argument ID, I'm gonna return current user, and this will also break the cycle. Otherwise, I'm gonna return null. Okay, so now let's go to the view PHP and print what is this user object. That's an array which has ID, name, username, email, and so on. And this is Leanne Graham, which is the same user which has ID 1 in my users JSON. If I pass here ID 2, this is a different user basically. Okay, this is okay. Now let's print the user information. Okay, for the user information, I'm gonna still use table, but with a little bit different structure. Okay, I'm gonna create table here, give class table, create tBody. I'm not gonna create thead, and in this tBody, I have first element is th, and the second element is td. And in th, I'm gonna write name. Let me copy and paste this. Username, email, phone, and website. And in my td element, I'm going to output them. So I'm going to create PHP echo user, and here my PHP store made a mistake. Okay, so here we're gonna put name, here username, email, phone, and website. Okay, this is how my table looks like. But the point is that this table is not nice. So I don't have, let's view page source. So this is how page looks like. It has only HTML, only table, no HTML or body tags. Even the Bootstrap CSS is not included. That's why it looks really ugly. Okay, so we are gonna include this, but there's one way. Of course, I can copy this HTML and go to the view PHP and paste it right here, which will make it much more, which will make it whatever we want, but that's not what I want to do. In this case, I will have repeated HTML, so this will be repeated in two files, in index.php and view PHP, and next time we will have it in create and update PHP file also. So I'm going to move this into separate file. Here I'm going to create new folder, call it partials. I'm going to create here header PHP file, and I'm gonna put this header HTML right here, and I want to also create footer PHP file and put my, where is my footer? Okay, I'm gonna remove this, and I want to include my partials header PHP, and here I'm gonna take this, include footer PHP file from partials, and I'm going to put this HTML in footer. So this is my header, this is my footer. In my index.php, first I'm going to including header, then I'm including the footer. So I want to copy this and put it in my view PHP also. Okay, so this one, Okay, that's nice. Let's see. Yeah, the result is same. Let's view page source. We have this HTML, we have table, and this end of body and HTML text. That's what we wanted. Okay, let's handle errors. So if I put here 22 and this ID doesn't exist, I see the name, username, and email and phone and website attributes, but I don't see the corresponding values. Okay, so I want to display that the user wasn't found for this particular ID. Okay, here I want to do the following. If the user ID doesn't exist, okay, so maybe I don't pass the ID here in the view PHP also. In this case, I have an error, undefined index ID. So I want to check this in the following way. If is set get ID. So basically I'm saying here, if ID exists in superglobal get, then do whatever you want. But here I'm going to do if it doesn't exist in superglobal get, then I'm going to throw an error. I'm going to display an error page right here. Otherwise, I'm going to get the user ID and call this function get user by ID, save it in a variable, do something. Here I want to do additional check. Maybe the ID exists, but the user was not found. Okay, so here let me print echo not found and exit right here. And in this case we have not found, but we may pass invalid ID like 22. In this case, question mark. In this case we need to also display not found. So in this case user doesn't exist. If user doesn't exist, I'm going to do the same, not found and exit. Okay, so I'm going to include this header at the very top because it needs to any kind of HTML, even this not found. Okay, this is now how it looks like. Okay, instead of this echo not found, I'm going to create additional partials, which will be not found PHP file. And here I'm going to use bootstrap alert. I'm going to give two classes to this div element, alert and alert danger, with h3 user does not exist. And here in our view PHP file, instead of echo, I'm gonna include these partials not found PHP, and I'm gonna do the same on line 13. Okay, this is how our user doesn't exist file looks like. Let's go back to the index PHP and see. When we click on the view button, we get this nice view page. Okay, so let's try different user, and it works fine. Now let's add the title to this nice page that we need to know on which user we are right now. Okay, so for this I'm gonna use bootstrap card element. So this is basically div with class card, nothing special, as I said. Okay, I'm gonna put my table right here, and I'm gonna use card header and put here h3 element update user. Okay, this is how my card looks like. Let's put here user information, which user basically we are updating. Sorry, we are not updating any user, we're just viewing. My bad, excuse me. View user PHP echo user name. Okay. Okay, view user Clementine Bauch. Let's go back and try the first user, which is Leanne Graham. Okay, let's put this card in a container element. Again, bootstrap element, which will reduce the width and just will not put on the full width. Okay, that's much better. Let's go back and let's put our index.html content in the container also. I'm going to take this table and put it in the container, and this is how my table looks like. Really nice. We have a website here, and it will be good if the website would be linked to their actual website. So when I click on this, it opens this website. Okay, so I'm gonna go to this table, this index PHP, and here is my website. Okay, so I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna create an anchor link right here and put the website in the href and in the inner content also, and put HTTP protocol, HTTP, before this website actually, because the website doesn't have a protocol at all. So this, yeah, in order for this to work, we need this HTTP protocol. And I'm going to open this into target blank. Okay, so now the website is linked, and when I click on this website, it opens this in a new page. The websites are just dumb websites, and I assume that they don't work, but anyway, yeah, they redirected to something. Okay, let's go to the view PHP and do the same right here for our website. Okay, so I'm going to basically copy this line, go to the view PHP, and for the website, I'm going to paste it right here. Okay, this is how it works. Perfect. Now let's create update and delete pages. Okay, so I'm going to create, so when I click update button, I have this object not found again. So I'm going to create not PHP class, but PHP file. I'm going to create update PHP and basically do the same as for view at this moment. So we're going to include partials, we're going to include users, we're going to check if the ID exists in get, because we need this ID for the update also, and then get user by ID and do some update stuff right here. Okay, so I'm going to include this into update. Okay, and when this is done, so let's dump the user information. Okay, this is our user information that we want to update Leanne Graham. Here we need to create form. I'm going to copy and paste my form HTML. Okay, here's my form HTML. I have a method post and ink type multipart form data, because I want to upload also images. So the multipart form data is necessary for images. Here I have an action empty string, which means that the form will be posted on the same file on which it is displayed on the update PHP. Okay, so here I have some bootstrap components, form group with name and input, and I'm just outputting the current username and email just to pre-populate the form. And finally, I have this input type file, which will be for uploading an image. Okay, let's see how our form looks like. Okay, this is my form. Let's put again this form in the container and in the card. Okay, so I'm going to create container, put it right here. This will reduce the form width, and I'm going to also create a card component with a card header and with card body, and I'm going to put my I'm going to put my form in card body, and in card header, I made a mistake. The card body needs to be outside of the card header. And in card header, I have this h3 attribute, text update user with b tags user name. Okay, this is how my form looks like. Let me remove this var dump. Okay, this is how my form looks like, and now when I change something, I want to update this. Okay, right now it just refreshes. This form, the update PHP for this file will be used for update also. So this is used for displaying the update form, and this form will be used for update also. Okay, so here I'm going to check if the current method, request method, is post, then I'm going to update. Okay, so here I'm going to dump basically global server variable information, and let's see. Okay, here's my super global server, which has a lot of key value pairs right here. So we want to check the request method. So I'm going to search for a method, and the request method is get. Okay, now when I change something and hit the submit button, let's search for a method. Right now the request method is post. Okay, so we're basically accessing this page with the post. So I'm going to check this right here. If server request method is post, I'm going to handle the update right here. Okay, so how I'm going to do this? I'm going to basically call my user's PHP update user function. Okay, so update user, passing here some data, and in this case this will be post data, whatever comes from the post. Let's print and see what data comes from the post. Okay, let's comment this right now and continue. And here's my post data, okay, which is printed on line 19. We have this name, username, email, phone, and website. Okay, and the ID we have in the URL. So I'm gonna basically call this update user, pass the post data, and pass the user ID, which is user ID variable declared right here. This should update, but we need to implement the update user logic, right? So again, we're gonna get all users using get users function. I'm gonna iterate over my users and find the user by ID. If basically I'm gonna copy this. And here I need to handle update when I find the user. So I'm gonna also include the I index on iteration, and whenever I find the user by ID, I need to reassign this into users variable. So users at I index will be, and here I'm gonna merge my data into the user data. Basically I can take this data and put it right here, but it's more safe to merge in the current user array, because if there exists some data in the current user which is not displayed in the form, if we assign just data, this will lose some information from the user. Okay, so I'm gonna call array merge. First I'm gonna pass my data, and then I'm gonna pass vice versa. So first I'm gonna pass the user, and then I'm gonna pass the data. So if some information like name, for example, exists in both user, which is the JSON user, if the name exists in both in user and in data also, the data name will be used. Okay, so and we have these updated users, and let's print these updated users, and let's do for the first one Leanne Graham, just put there 1, submit, and this is the updated users array, and the name has Leanne Graham 1. This is basically the data reflected in the JSON. So we're going to put this right now in the JSON file. Okay, so for this I'm going to call file put contents. First I'm going to pass the file name where I want to put, and the file name is the same for reading, of course. These are the users JSON, and we're gonna JSON encode our users and put this in the JSON. Okay, so now let's refresh the page, and let's see how our user JSON was changed. Okay, this was minified into single line. Okay, let's prettify it, and for the first user we have Leanne Graham 1. Okay, so when I refresh the page, basically hit the enter, I have Leanne Graham 1. This means that my user was successfully updated. Okay, so when the user is successfully updated, let's try to redirect to the index PHP. Okay, so let's go to the update, and if the user was successfully updated, let's change the location. So I'm gonna call the header function with location index PHP. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's just refresh the page. Okay, no, we need to put this in the update. So if the request method is post, in this case, we need to redirect. Okay, let's refresh it, go to the update, and right here, instead of 1, let's put 2, save and update. And here's our Leanne Graham. Okay, so we have successfully updated Leanne Graham. Okay, let's upload an image on this user, Leanne Graham. First, let's try to update other attributes also. Let's put 2 on everywhere, and perfect, it is updated and it works fine. Now let's upload the image. Okay, so let's go to the code, and whenever we have the request method post, I'm gonna take the currently uploaded file and do some actions. Okay, so let's see if file exists first of all. So we need to use super global files for this. Let's dump files, and let me upload it. Okay, the first one, submit. Okay, I need to put here exit, otherwise it is redirected. Okay, upload the file, submit, and here's my uploaded file, which has key picture, and this is the name in the form. Okay, so I'm gonna check if is set files picture. If file exists, I'm gonna call method move uploaded file. First, I want to pass the source and then the destination. The source basically will be the TMP name of the files. Okay, so here I want to use files picture TMP name. I'm gonna remove this dump, and I want to move this under some folder. So basically I want to create a new folder for this. Okay, I want to move this under images slash, and the actual name of the picture should be, in my case, let me use here double quotes, put user, and I want to use user ID dot JPG. Okay, but here there's a potential bug. The image may not be JPG. Okay, in our case it's JPG and it will work fine. Let's put here current current directory. Okay, right now we have uploaded JPG and this should work, but this will not work if we upload a PNG file. Okay, so let's just try this right now. Okay, the image was saved, and no, it wasn't saved. Basically, it threw an error, I think. Okay, so let's comment this header, hit the update, choose the image, submit, and we have this warning. Okay, we don't have images folder right now, and that's why PHP cannot move this file into images folder. Okay, I'm going to do here the following. First, I'm going to create users folder and put my users JSON and users PHP in this folder. Okay, so but I want to fix my require. I want to include them from users in all areas. Okay, require users in view PHP also users. Okay, this should work on all of the previous methods. It works for index, it works for view, and it works for update also. Okay, now let's go to the update, and here I want to also use users images. But before I actually call this move uploaded file function, I want to check if the folder exists or not. Okay, so if isDir, I'm going to use this isDir method, pass their user images, and basically I want to negate this if the user's images does not exist and it's not dir. Basically isDir checks if it exists and if it's a directory or not. Okay, so if this is not a directory, I'm going to create a directory right here using mkdir method, pass their users PHP. And when this will be created, or if it exists, I will just call this move uploaded file. Okay, so let's upload an image, hit the submit. Okay, something was done, but I have commented this header. Oh, okay, let's check the users images, and here's my one JPG. One JPG, basically, this is called one because my user ID is one. And when I save under this images folder, I call it user ID JPG. Okay, so I'm going to basically change this so that instead of JPG, we will be able to handle other extensions also. Okay, so here I'm going to write the following. First of all, I'm going to take the current extension. Okay, here's what I did. I take the file name, current file name from this picture name. Then I detected the dot position, and I take the substring from the dot till the end. And this gives me the current extension. And I want to use this extension when I save the file. And I want to save this extension in the JSON because the user needs to know what extension it has on its own image, whether it has JPG image or PNG. When this information is saved in the JSON, then we can easily display the user. Okay, so here when the file is saved, I'm gonna call again update user. Okay, basically I want to modify my update user so that it returns the actual updated user. Okay, so here I want to create update user array. I want to return this update user, and here I want to assign my update user the array merge. Okay, so basically I'm going to do the following. Users at I is updated user and is array merge. Okay, and this will return updated user. I will save this user in a variable, and when the file is saved and when I know the extension of the file, I update my user and put their extension. Okay, extension is extension, and I call this update user, pass their user and the user ID. And this will save the extension in the JSON. And let's uncomment the redirect, and let's go to the index. Let's go back. Okay, here. Okay, let's go to the second one, upload an image, hit submit, and the information was saved. And let's go to the user's JSON for the second user. Okay, I'm going to prettify this, and I have this extension. The second user basically has this extension JPG. So if we will upload PNG, here PNG will be written. Okay, I'm going to change the way how JSON is saved on the file system. So this is saved in a single line, which is really hard to read, so I'm going to modify this. The file put contents has a second argument, which is flags. So I'm going to put here pretty JSON pretty print flag. Okay, so when the JSON is saved on the file system, it will be saved as a pretty JSON. Okay, let's update the third user, upload their image and save it, and let's go to the user's JSON. It wasn't saved as a pretty. Okay, let's format it. We have this extension here. We don't have this extension on the first user, and let's try to do the same thing. Okay, choose, submit, load file system changes. Okay, it's not saved as a pretty, or it's wrong. My mistake is that I want to put this not in the file put contents method, but in the JSON encode, the second argument. My mistake. Okay, now that should work. Let's upload image, submit, go to the JSON, and here's my JSON. Okay, really nice. Now I want to display the current image in the table. Okay, let's go to the index.php, add another column here, image, and add another TD here. And here we want to check if the current user has extension, then we know that it has also image and we want to display this image. If it doesn't have extension, we just leave it empty. Okay, so here I'm going to write, let me do it like this: PHP if current user has extension property set. Basically, I will render an image tag. Image with source. Source will be just users/images. Again, I want to use double quotas here to inject a variable there. I'm going to inject user ID, and then I'm going to inject also user extension. Okay, so this should display images on the users. Okay, images are not displayed. Let's see the network. We have error, and the error is because I forgot slash. Next to the images, I need /user/.extension. Okay, here are my users. Perfect. Let me reduce the user style. Width is just 60 pixel. Okay, so this is how my users look like. And now let's create a new user. Okay, for this we're going to add create new user button right here above the table. I'm going to put here a with href attribute create PHP, create new user text. I'm going to give the bootstrap classes btn outline success. Okay, we have this nice button. Let me remove this outline. We have this nice button, and when I click on this, it goes to the create PHP, but we don't have create PHP yet. So I'm going to create this. Create PHP. Okay, the create PHP form should look like really much similar as the update PHP. So here we have this nice form with a couple of HTML input fields. So we need to have the same in the create PHP. Basically, there are two ways here. I can copy my form and put it in the create PHP and do it like this, but it's not good. If I want to add a new attribute, then I will have to add in the update and in the create also. So basically, I'm going to create separate file for this form. Okay, so I'm gonna take this form, create a new _form PHP, and put this right here. And I'm using in this form a user variable. So whenever this form is included, user variable must be declared. Otherwise, this will throw an error. Okay, so let's go to the update and first of all fix the update problem. So when I hit the update button, let me save this, and when I refresh, now my update form is empty. So I want to include PHP include my form. Now this will work in the same way. Submit. Okay, this will work in the same way, but we need to also implement create. Okay. So for create, basically the same happens as for the update, with minor differences. First of all, we include this header and users and some boilerplate thing. So I'm going to paste it right here and clean up. I don't expect that there is an ID in the URL, so I'm going to remove this. Also, I don't want this. I don't want to get the current user. Instead, I want to call a create user and pass their post data. That's basically what I want. And I want to also handle the image upload in the same way I do here. So I need to copy this code and put it in the create PHP also, which I don't want, again, for the same reason, because I will have repeated code in two places. So basically what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take my code, which I have in update PHP, the logic, and put it in the form. Or there is another way to create a new file in the users folder, or better, if I put this right here, I'm going to create a new function, upload image, which will accept the files, which will accept the current file, and I'm going to pass right here, if the picture exists, I'm going to call upload image and pass this picture right here, and I want to pass also the user data. Okay, so I want to take this code, go to the upload image and put it right here. Okay, so if the images folder doesn't exist, create this images folder. Otherwise, take the name from the current file, then detect the extension and upload this right here under images/user ID. I want to use braces right here. Do I have the current user? No, I don't have. I want to accept right here, user ID, and then I want to update JSON. Okay, we need to check if the current update form works fine. Okay, so let's go to the update, put there to upload an image, hit the submit, and we have this nice image. Fine, now let's go to the create new user and do some actions there. Okay, go to the create PHP, and here we also want to check if the if picture is set in the files, then we need to upload the picture and redirect. Okay, so let's go to the create PHP. When the user is created, we need to save this in a variable, and we want to check if the, basically do the same. Let's go to the create PHP and implement this function. First, I do the same, get users, then I want to create new user and save this back into JSON. Okay, so the data is my current user data. I want to assign ID to this data. So data ID is some random ID from 1 million to up to 2 million. Okay, just random ID. Make sure that it won't repeat, and put this in the users and return current user. Basically, we need to return data, which will have also ID now, and we need to call this file put contents. And for this, basically, I will create again one more new method, function put JSON, and this will accept the users array and put this in the users JSON. So I want to call this put JSON on two places, in the update user and in the create user. Okay. Okay, let's go to the create PHP. Okay, this creates the user, and we need the form, of course. I'm going to copy also this stuff from the update, and basically what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to take this code and put it in the form also. okay, the container and the card layout and so on. So I'm going to put this in the form also. But for update, I need to change my card header, because for update, for create, basically, for create, I want to change this card header, and I need to make sure that the user variable exists. Otherwise, I will have an error. For update, this should work fine. Again, let's go back to update, hit the update button, remove this to, hit the save, and it works fine. And for create, we have some problem. One problem is that I'm redirecting always. I need to check when the request method is post. So I'm going to take this code also. When the request method is post, I'm going to create user, upload image, redirect, and if not, I want to include my form, this line. Okay, let's do like this. Create. Okay, a lot of errors, and the problem is that user variable is not declared nowhere here, and form PHP trusts on this user variable. Okay, so I want to declare this user variable with empty data. Or I have to check if the user variable exists, output the name and username and so on. I prefer the first way. I will just create a user variable with just empty key value pairs. Like the name is empty, and the username is empty, email is empty, phone is empty, and the website is empty. Okay, so when the user is saved, basically I'm going to do this above. So when the user will be saved, this variable will be overwritten and it will be updated user. Okay, so let's refresh the page, and we have here, yeah, basically errors are disappeared, but we have here update user, because in our form we have update user hard-coded. Here we need to write an if statement. If ID exists in the user, but instead of isSet, I can do here, I can pass here ID also as an empty string, and check it if the current user has ID. Then I'm gonna write update user. Otherwise, I'm gonna put here create user and if. Okay, so I'm gonna take this H3 opening and closing tags and put it outside also. And when ID exists, I print update user. If not, I print create new user. Okay, so now when I refresh the page, I have this create new user. Let's put there John Doe. The username is John. Email is john@example.com. Phone is 1234. Website is john.com. Okay. Choose also file. Hit this submit, and let's go back. We have another errors: undefined index email in index PHP on line 37. Okay, we did something wrong, obviously, and we need to check out our user's JSON. Here's our user's JSON, and this is the mistake I think we did previously. So I'm gonna remove this. This is an error data. Okay, so now let's refresh this, and here's my John Doe. It works fine basically. So here's my John Doe, which we have just created. Hit the update, put there 1, hit the submit, and it was saved. And the images disappeared basically. That's bug. So when we update a user which has image, the image is lost. And the reason for this, the image files are there, and the reason I think is that we'll lose this extension. Okay, so let's go to the update. Let's go to the user's PHP, and when we do an update, here we have the current user, which has the extension, and the data doesn't have extension. So let's dump both user and data and hit the exit. Okay, here we have single user which has image, this one, hit the update the data, submit, and here's our data. We have ID, name, username, and we have this extension, and the extension doesn't exist in the post data in the website. Yeah, well, it doesn't exist right here. So what is the updated user data? Let's put also here if array merge works as I want. Okay, the array merge has extension also, so it should be saved in the database. What's wrong? Okay, we are working on the user with ID 3, and it has this extension. Okay, let me remove these var dump statements and see if the extension will be removed from the ID 3 user. Okay, let's save this. Let's come here. Extension is false. Okay, what's the reason here? Let's go to the update PHP. Okay, if picture exists, we upload image. Let's see what is this pictures files picture. Let's print this. Okay, update, choose an image, or let me go back and change this back to JPG. Okay, let's remove this too and submit. I see the problem. The problem is that the files picture is always set, and we call this upload image, and it does this stuff, detects the extension, and the extension is false because there is no file name actually. All of them are empty, so we need to check this also. Okay, so maybe we need to take this isSet and put it in the upload image and modify this. So if picture is set and the picture has a name, then we can do the stuff. Okay, so we can do all of these. I think I made a mistake. Oops. If picture is set and it has name, then do the stuff. Okay, so let me remove this and go to the create PHP and just remove this isSet from here also, because upload image will check this. Okay, let's go back and let's refresh the page. Let me check what is the extension in JSON. It's JPG. Okay, now let's update it, and my image was not lost, which is what we wanted. Save. Let's upload an image. Okay, my bad. Save. Submit, and let's update. Perfect, it works fine. Okay, now I'm gonna add these update and delete buttons in the view section also. So I'm gonna go to the view, and before the table I'm gonna create card body HTML element, div element. The card body is bootstrap class again. So I'm gonna create two anchor links right here. First is the update, goes to the update PHP with ID equals to the current user ID, and second one will be delete PHP. Okay, I'm gonna give them bootstrap classes, btn, danger, and the second one, and the update one will be secondary. Okay, of course. Okay, here are our buttons. When I click on update, I go to the update page. When I go back and when I hit on delete, I get this object not found. Okay, now let's implement delete. For this, I'm going to create new file, of course. For making a delete request, we can actually do as we started and do this with get requests passing the ID. But when modifying the data in the database, it's highly recommended not to use get request. In this case, we want to modify the data, of course. We want to delete the data from our JSON. And doing this by get request is not a really secure way. But of course, I'm going to show you this first with the get request and then how to do this with post request. Okay, here in the delete PHP, we're going to get the ID from the super global get. So I'm going to copy this boilerplate code again. Include header, include users, check if the ID is not set in the URL, then throw not found error, then take the user ID. And here we can directly delete the user. Let me go to the users PHP and implement this delete user method. Okay, so users, get users, iterate over my users, find the user by ID again. If user ID is the given ID, I'm going to check this with double equal because I don't know actually what is the type of this ID which comes from the URL. I assume that this may be a string because this comes from the URL, and in JSON I have ID integer, ID number. So I'm gonna compare them with double equal. Okay, so when I found this, I'm gonna delete the user. Okay, basically here are two options to delete. First one is unset. Unset removes the user from the array, but the indexes remain the same for the other elements. Okay, so let me take the index also and unset I element from the users array. Okay, and this finally will give me users. Let's see what is users. Okay, delete. Okay, I don't call this delete user function. I'm gonna call it right here. Pass user ID, and I'm gonna comment this right now. I think I won't need it, but still I'm gonna comment it. Okay, refresh the page, and here are my users. Okay, so I'm gonna deleting which user ID 1, which has an index 0 in the PHP array. And the next elements right now have the same index as they had before. So my array starts from 1. Okay, let's fix this, and I'm gonna do this using a second method, array splice, which removes the other element from the array and updates the indexes also. So for this, I'm going to use array splice, which takes the array we want to modify, then it takes the offset, the starting position, and the number of elements we want to add. Okay, we want to remove, sorry. Now let's see the new array, and the index starts right now with 0. Okay, that's the difference. I'm gonna leave it with array splice, and here I'm gonna call method put JSON, which takes and saves the new users array. Okay, and yeah, that's basically it. And go to the delete PHP and make a redirect. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this redirect line and put it right here. Okay, here we deleted our user, and let's go and delete this John Doe, and it's deleted successfully. Okay. Now let me show you how we can make a delete request using post method. So I'm going to go to the index PHP first, and here is my delete button. So I'm going to take this button and modify, put here form. The form has action to delete PHP, and I will have a button. I'm going to modify my anchor length so that it will be a button. I'm going to remove this href attribute because I will pass the ID as a hidden input field. Okay, so input type hidden, name is ID, and value will be user ID. Okay, and the method will be post, of course. That's why we decided to create form. Now let's refresh the page, and I'm going to observe the button. I'm going to inspect it, and every button basically is inserted in the form. Okay, and when I hit this delete button, it makes a post request. Okay, let's go to the delete PHP and observe the post data. So I'm going to dump a post data right here and exit the code. So hit the button, and here's my post data, and I have ID. My ID is not displayed in the URL because it's sent with the post method right now. So instead of checking if the ID exists in get, I'm going to check if ID exists in post. If it exists, I'm going to take it from the post and make a request just like this. So let me remove this code and go back, refresh the page, hit the delete button, and I deleted the user with post method, which is much more secure way of doing delete actions into the database. Let's go to the view page and implement the same thing with this delete button. Okay. Okay, basically I'm going to copy my form from the index, go to the view and put it right here. Basically, I think I don't have to change anything, except that the btn, I'm going to use btn danger and without btn small for the view. Okay, that's basically it. Let's go to the view page, and here the button jumps on the second line. That's because it's inserted in the form, and the form has display block. So I need to change the display property on the form into display inline block, and the buttons will be displayed on the same line. So I'm going to go to the form and add their style display inline block, and that's it. Now I hit the delete button, it deletes the user and redirects to the index page, and now I have much fewer users. Okay, so that's the basic operations around our project. We implemented how to create the user, how to update user, how to delete user. We implemented to delete the user with two different ways, with get and post requests. And I think the only thing which is remained here is validations of the form. Validations are really crucial. Security is really important thing. So we need to think about validation on real-world projects. So on this also, here I can submit the empty form and it does something obviously. And empty user basically is added at the end of the table. If I create new user and hit the submit button, another empty user is added, and so on. And we can see the JSON data below there, all of the fields are just empty. Okay, so now let's start validation and put down some basic validations in the form, like the name and username are mandatory, email should be valid email, phone should contain only numbers, and the website should be a valid website. Okay, for most validations, I'm going to use PHP filter var method. Okay, here is the official documentation of the filter var, and what this does basically do, it filters a variable with specific type, and it returns true or false or the filtered value. Okay. So if we want to check if particular variable is email or valid email address or not, we can use filter var passing the value of the email and the constant filter validate method. So basically this is what we're going to do for email and for website, and we're going to do our own validations for name, username, and phone. Okay, let's start. Go to the form. And we need to validate the method right here. Not in the form, but in the create and update files. Okay, so in create, we don't have to call this create user if the posted data is not valid. So we're going to run our validation right here. Okay, so I'm going to take the name from the post. And here I'm going to run my validations. So if the name and username is empty, then we are not going to submit the form. Okay, and we're going to display the error to the user. Okay, so here I'm going to write if name exists and the username exists, we're good to go. I'm going to basically do the following: declare variables for errors, and the errors will be for each of the attribute, for ID, not for ID, but for name, username, email, phone, and website. And when there is a validation fail, we will put something in the errors, and then we are going to display the errors in the form. Okay, so the errors will be displayed in the form. Before I implement this, let me go to the form and update this so that I will display an error right here. So next to each input fields, I'm going to write a paragraph. Let me check the official Bootstrap documentation for errors. Get bootstrap.com. Go to the documentation, content, components, forms, and below there will be form validations. Okay, where is it? Here are our form validations. Okay, so this is how the errored form looks like, and this is how successful form looks like. So there are basically two classes. If we add the valid feedback, this will make it green. If we add an invalid feedback, this will make it red. So I'm going to take this invalid feedback and add this to the paragraph. Maybe I need to change this into div as it is in the official documentation. And I'm going to put the text here. Name is mandatory. Okay, let's do this just for name. Let's go to our form and see how this looks like so far. Okay, so here is invalid feedback, which is not visible actually. And when will it be visible? That's the point. So this gets visible under was validated method when the form control is invalid. If we scroll down in the official documentation, there is a section server side, which means that how we can add these validate invalid actions from the server side. And that's exactly what we want. So we want to basically add is invalid CSS class to the form control whenever it's invalid. So if I write an if statement right here, not if this if statement, but in the class, I can add is invalid method whenever I have an error in my errors array, basically. So if there is an error for errors for name, let me hit an enter here. If there's an error for name, I'm gonna add is invalid class, otherwise I'm gonna add an empty class. Okay, and I'm gonna put echo here. And if I go to the create PHP and adjust name there, the error, let's do like this, the username is mandatory. Okay, and I'm gonna output the error's name right here. Okay, there's a better way, I think, of doing this, is that we have an empty errors for all of them, and instead of is set, let's just check if error name exists, then just add is invalid class, otherwise don't do anything, and always output the error name, and when it's empty thing will be outputted right here. So let's just see how this looks like when I refresh the form. Okay, here is how this looks like. So basically we made the form form input to be read, but our feedback is not visible, and the reason is that I mistakenly forgot to put their echo. So this is how my invalid form will look like when I make a proper validation. Here may be written the name is mandatory, the username is mandatory, or the username is too long or too short, depending on what validations we put actually. So I'm going to go to the create PHP and do the validations right here. Let me remove this and just put an empty errors right here for name, for username, email, phone, and website. Okay, and I'm gonna also make a variable is invalid, which by default will be false, and I will call create user and upload image, and also redirect if is invalid is false. So if is invalid, or let's do vice versa, is valid, and is valid by default is true, so everything is valid. So if it's valid, I'm gonna create user, upload image, and redirect. Otherwise it will just render the same form, and that's we want exactly. And here we're gonna put some checks. So if the name doesn't exist, I'm gonna take the errors array and put their name. Name is mandatory. Okay, let's do this for username also. If username doesn't exist, or the length of the username is less than 6, for example, or the length of the username is greater than 16, then we're gonna show an error, that errors in username we're going to put here username is required and it must be more than 6 and less than 16 characters. Okay, so these are basic validations, and whenever we are about to set the error message, we're going to change this is invalid, is valid to false also. So we're going to put this every time. And let's check how this works so far. So we go to the create PHP, hit the submit button, and it doesn't work at all. Okay, let's go to the form, the create PHP, and check what is wrong right here. Okay, let's dump what is valid right here. Is valid, hit the exit, go to the create and hit the submit. Okay, is valid is false. My mistake is that I have this exclamation mark. Okay, so hit the submit button, and here's my error. Name is mandatory, and the username error is not displayed. The username error is not displayed because I haven't implemented in the form actually. So I'm going to take this, put it next to the input field, change the error's name into a username, and copy the following line into the form control class and do the same right here for username. Okay, now let's hit the submit button again, and here is our username error. Username is required and it must be more than 6 and less than 16 characters. Okay, so let's put something in the name like John, for example, and put something in the username also which is not valid. Actually, John is not valid. Okay, hit the submit button, and now we have back here that the existing inserted name and username were lost, but we have this still the same error on username. So we need to contain this inserted name and username. So I'm going to go to the create PHP once again, and what happens here? The actual values for the here's value for the user comes from the user variable and name. So if we go to the create PHP, we see that our user variable is basically empty, and it only changes when we create user. Okay, so when we create user, we reassign this to the user variable, and then we do a redirect. Okay, so we need to update our user with the post data even if the user is not created. Okay, so I'm going to do this right here. My user variable is array merge the existing user variable and the post data. And in this case, I can even remove these lines and replace with user name. If username, if user variable username, and the same thing. So basically I can remove this, and let's see the result so far. Submit, name is mandatory, of course, John, username is again John, hit the submit button, and my name and usernames were remained and displayed. So if I add 2 more letters in the username, this will be submitted, and I was redirected to the index page because it was submitted successfully. So I will go to the update, and here we have an error, undefined variable users on line 19. That's obvious because we created a users variable in the create PHP, but we have not created and have not done this in the update. So let's first finish validation for the create form and then move on to the update. Okay, let's go to the create and do validations for email, phone, and website. Okay, for email we're going to use filter var if user email, and we're going to put this in the filter var function. First is the variable, and then filter flag email. I think we need some kind of email. Okay, filter validate email. Okay, filter validate email. If this is not a valid email, then I'm gonna reassign this is valid variable and put an error in the email attribute. This must be a valid email address. Okay, we don't care if it's required or not, but it must be valid email address. So if we don't care if it's required or not, we need to write here that if the user email exists and if it's not valid email address, then we put an error right here. So if it doesn't exist, so if it's an empty string, we don't care about this. Okay, this is the rule. Let's move on and check about the phone number. Okay, so if there's a method function is numeric. Okay, so or we can use filter var also here for user phone, and the validate number, I think integer. Yeah, it must be an integer. Okay, if the phone is not an integer, we hit is valid false and errors. Okay, phone, this must be a valid phone number. And for the website, let's keep for the website, it's not that important. Okay, let's go to the form and hit the submit button, and we have a couple of validation errors. But we don't have error for phone and email, and this is because we haven't implemented them in the form. So I'm going to copy this line, put it basically for all of them, and modify. Here we have website, here we have phone, here we have email. And I'm going to copy the following also. Email. Here we have phone. And website. Let's hit the submit button once again, and now we have an error for phone. Valid, I have a typo. It must be a valid phone number. Okay, if I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and hit the submit, there's no error on phone, but for name and username there is still displayed. Okay. That's basically it about validation. So the filter var method supports a lot of validation rules. For example, for the URL and many others. So if you're interested, you can go to the filter var and then type of filters, validate filters. And here are basically all of the validate filters: validate boolean, validate domain. So if we want to validate if the website is valid, we can validate it with validate domain. Here is validate email, phone, integer, if it's a valid IP or not, and so on. So basically here are all of the validation rules. And the validate filter var method provides other ways of filtering the variable, for example, to sanitize the variables. So just remove some, remove all characters except letters, digits, and so on from the, if we want that the input field to be a valid email, we need to remove all invalid characters from this input field. Okay, so and this is what the sanitize email constant will do. And you can have a look at these constants. I really recommend. Okay, that's basically all about our application, and we have created the simple create, read, update, and delete applications. So we have implemented the create user functionality. John Doe, username is John, email is John. Let's leave it as it is. Phone is 12345, and let's leave the website. Hit the submit button, and we have an error that email is not valid email address, and that's quite true. For John, we can hit just okay. That's our new user. Okay, let's update the user, and yeah, here's an error. We need to handle this, of course. Let me go to the update PHP, and we need to basically copy the errors from create PHP into the update PHP and see the result so far. But we need to also do the validations. Okay, so the validations are done in the create PHP, and here are basically start of validation, and here is end of validation. Okay, end of validation. So here we want to check, we want to make this code basically reusable so that this will be used in the update also. One way of doing this is to move this code in the user's PHP. Okay, so I'm going to create new function validate user, which has some rules of validation. It will accept the user as an argument, and it has this users variable. Let me take this, or I think we don't need it right here. So it has this it creates this is valid and errors array, and returns just two of them. So I return an array is valid and errors. Okay, and when I call this, I think I need to declare them. Is valid is true, and errors is just an empty array with not empty array but with these default errors. Okay, so now I call this validate user in the create PHP. Actually, I need to pass user, and I need to take out is valid and errors from this user. So I'm going to modify this. So instead of returning errors, this will just return is valid or not, and it will modify existing errors. So I'm going to pass these errors with a reference. So I'm going to ampersand and the errors. So this will take the reference of this errors array and put the name, username, and all of the things in the same errors. So I'm going to remove this line. I don't need it. Okay, I have declared this is valid true, and I return is valid true or not, and I'm updating the same errors array. Okay, so I'm assigning this is valid right here. Okay, let's go to the create, let's implement the update also and check both of them. Rule is really simple, so we just copy now this single line is valid, and we check if is valid. Then we call this upload image, and we need to call this also right here. And we need to assign the user the array merge. Okay, let's check the result. Okay, now we don't have any error. Let's go back and create new user. Hit the submit button. Our validations works fine. John Doe again. John. Let me leave email 1234. choose an image, hit the submit button, and here's our just created John Doe. If I go to the update, and if I put something right here, hit the submit button, I have an error on the email. Okay, that's basically all. That's the end of the video. If you last and watched the video till the end, I really appreciate it. And thanks again for watching. If you're new here, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and let me know what you think about my videos. And if you like the video, of course, share it in your social network. Thanks again, and see you in the next time. Cheers.